Hello there.
Hi, people, and let us start off today with wishing all of you tuned in a very, very happy Christmas, a very Merry Christmas from.
Sugar and spice.
So, today we've lined up two happy stories for you on the occasion of Christmas or in the spirit of Christmas. And the first one by Deepthi.
Okay, this one is called The Lost Letter, and here it goes. The previous night of Christmas, Henry Franklin had his letter ready for Santa. Yes, the wish list. It was a very, very long one, and he was all set to keep it under the chimney for Santa to take it. But he was a little skeptical if Santa would spot his house. So, what did he do? He lit up his house as much as he could. He decorated it the best way he can. And then he came out of the house and he saw that his house was looking beautiful, fully lit up. There was no way Santa would miss it. And that is when his eyes fell on the house in the neighborhood. There was absolutely no light there. It was completely dark, not even a candle. He decided to go in and check. He went in. Actually, he knocked at the door to see an old woman slowly who came and opened the door, and she was not very keen on letting him in. Henry, the naughty boy that he was, he just barged in. He did not wait for permission, along with a small Tweety bird who was his friend who followed. They ran around the house, they created a lot of noise, they were jumping, and you know how kids are. He was just being naughty. But this old lady was not happy at all. He was like, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" She looked very upset until something very bad happened. He went and hit one photo that was kept on the table, and it fell on the ground and broke. When he took the picture, the photo in his hand, "Oh no," the lady said. "Who is this? I'm so sorry. Is it by any chance your daughter or your niece? She's a very pretty girl. Who is this?" She said. She smiled. She sat down on her chair and she started to tell the story of who she was. It was she herself, a very, very young picture of hers. She said, "That's a very lonely young girl." Yes, that's me. All I did was write a letter to Santa asking for a friend, as I was very, very lonely and alone. I wrote it down and I left it under the chimney. And you know what? No one answered that letter. And I'm all alone until today. I've grown old. So, boy, let me tell you, take this advice. There's no Santa, and none of your wish is going to be fulfilled. So please leave. Henry was disappointed. He was heartbroken. He went back home and he took his letter, which he was about to leave for Santa to read. And he just left it on the table and walked away. Meanwhile, in the old woman's house, this little Tweety bird, you remember? She had not left. She went into the fireplace, and through the chimney she was trying to come out when she noticed something which was stuck. And she tried to take it out and it fell. The old woman noticed this and she went and picked it up and saw it was that letter she had written to Santa many, many, many years ago. She did not know what to do. She was overjoyed. "Oh my God, Santa never saw this." And she realized that the boy had also not left his letter. So she took both the letters and left it under the chimney. Next morning, When Henry woke up and he came out, he saw there was a huge spaceship, a rocket, standing right in front of his house. Yes, his wish was fulfilled. He ran and he hugged the old woman. Both their wishes had been fulfilled. The old woman got her friend, and Henry, his wish was fulfilled too. So there is no wish which goes unfulfilled on Christmas, right, Shrija?
Yes,
Yes.
and there are
It's a
so
very
many. It's a
sweet
very sweet little tale.
story.
Yeah, and there are so many very nice, sweet ones like this,
Yes.
which kind of gives you a feeling that it's good to hope, it's good to wish.
Yes. Sometimes when you hear adults saying that Santa does not exist, or why do you want to say such things to children? Just give them false hopes. It's not about that. It's about some kind of desire, something to look forward to.
Yes.
Ultimately, when they grow up, they are going to find out anyway. But
And even then, that's what
yes.
keeps you going on through life,
Absolutely.
isn't it?
Absolutely.
Hoping that things will be better, there's something nice coming up, and that's what keeps us going
True.
always.
True.
Lovely story, Deepti.
Yes, and we are waiting to hear yours, Shrija. So
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
I've got this is a very, very well known tale, and I'm sure most of you must be very familiar with it. And I wouldn't call it exactly a Christmas tale, but it's a very happy story, and it's something that all of us like. And this one is The Shoemaker and the Elves. So the story starts with this poor shoemaker who was so poor that he barely had leather to make shoes. And he tried very hard, but he was finding it very difficult to make ends meet. So one fine day, he told his wife, look, they were on the point of starvation. And he said, I think I've somehow managed to find an old piece of leather. So I'll make a pair of shoes with this, and let's hope once I sell it, we'll get some money and we can kind of, buy a few things for the house. So the wife says, fine. And the shoemaker sat and very diligently cut out the leather and got everything ready for a pair of shoes. And then, as was his practice, he left it on his work table and kept everything ready so that he could come back in the morning and stitch the shoes up, make them into shoes. So he went to sleep, and the next morning he got up early, and because they didn't have much to eat, had a very frugal breakfast, and he came into his workplace. And when he came walked up to his work table, lo and behold, he was shocked because before him stood a pair of beautifully crafted, very, very nice pair of leather shoes. And it was made of the leather that he had left behind the previous night. He picked it up and looked at it, and he had never seen such fine craftsmanship. It was perfect, every stitch in place, and it was polished to such a level that he could see his face on the face of the shoe. And while he was looking at this, someone knocked on his window, and when he looked out, he saw a customer who happened to look in and saw the shoemaker holding up this particular pair of shoes. So he says, how much do you want for that? Shoemaker was thrilled. I mean, no one had approached him this quickly for a pair of shoes. And he gave it to him and told him a price, but the customer liked it so much, he said, I'll pay you more for this because it's so beautifully made, and I'll be coming back for more. So he gave him the money and left. The shoemaker was thrilled. He ran to his wife and told her the good news and said, this is what happened. She says, my God, it's miraculous. He says, now I have enough money to make at least 2 or 3 pairs of shoes, and let me go get the leather. He rushed, got everything required, and again that night he sat, his wife helped him cut out the leather, kept them ready for 3 pairs of shoes, and he went to sleep, and so did his wife. Next morning he came, there again, 3 pairs of beautifully made shoes, each one more stylish than the other. He kept them on the window. The shoemaker wasn't quite able to figure out what was happening here, but he realized it was something good. And he took his shoes and kept it on the window, and just like that, within minutes, they were bought, and people paid very good prices for the shoes. And already there was by word of mouth, people came asking the shoemaker, would you make a pair of shoes? We saw this particular pair, it was very good. The shoemaker is so happy, he's never had such a thriving business, and he had more money to buy more leather. So day by day, He kept buying more leather, and every night he didn't know what happened, but when he woke up in the morning, the shoes were ready and ready for sale. So he made money. They did get enough to live a very happy, comfortable life, and this was going on for some time. And one day, when both of them were sitting over a cup of tea, the shoemaker told his wife, "Shouldn't we find out who this is who's so kindly making shoes for us? Shouldn't we check out and see, because we've never seen?" So the wife says, how do we go about it? It happens at night, we're asleep. He says, "Let's sit up. We'll sit up and watch and see what's happening." So that night, both of them hid behind the curtains in the workroom, and they looked out and waited. And when the clock struck 12, through the window they heard a little chirping sound, and when they looked, they saw two tiny little men, just that much. They were naked. They came jumping into the room, frisked towards the shoe leather that was spread out on the table. And sitting down, the two little creatures started stitching and sewing away. And within minutes, they had made, I think must have been about 10 pairs of shoes, because it kept out leather for that many pairs of shoes. And they made it all, and then again laughed, frisked, and ran out of the window and disappeared. The shoemaker and his wife came out and stared at what had happened. They couldn't believe their eyes. Who were they? The wife said, "They must be elves." And then the shoemaker said, "But did you notice they had nothing on? They were naked. The poor little creatures must be cold, and they're working so hard for us." So the wife said, "Well, we can do something for them." So the shoemaker says, What can we do?" And she says, "Let's make clothes for them, and I'll make clothes, you stitch little shoes for them, and we'll keep it. It's just a few days before Christmas. Why don't we give them a Christmas gift?" The shoemaker thought that was a brilliant idea, so they spent the next couple of days stitching up dear little clothes, a whole set of them, and he made some very, very sweet little shoes. He was a good shoemaker, so he knew, but just by looking at the size of the elves' feet, what the size of the shoes would be. So everything was ready, and they sorted it out and displayed it on the table, and they didn't go to sleep that night. They hid behind the drapes again and watched. When they watched, again the clock struck 12, and the two little men came running in happily to do their hard work. But they were shocked to find there were no bits of leather for them to stitch. Instead, they saw these clothes and shoes, and they were thrilled. They said, "We don't have to do anything. There's so much left, so many clothes that they've given us." And they quickly donned the clothes, put on the shoes, and they danced around on the table with great happiness. And whatever little extras they were there, they picked them up, and they said, "I don't think we need to come back here again, brother." One little elf, squeaks to the other one, a very, very squeaky voice. And says, "Because now I think they have enough. We don't need to make shoes for them, and now we have clothes. We are comfortable. Let's go." And the two of them jumped into the night and disappeared. After that night, the elves were never seen at the place, but then the shoemaker didn't really need them, because he'd already made it big, and they lived happily ever after. So this is a story that I loved. And one thing that comes to mind deeply is, when we had to play the shoemaker and the elves back in school, I was a shoemaker, and the teacher had spent days before that gathering all kinds of pairs of shoes, which I was supposed to put on display during the play, as a shoemaker gets rich. But what had happened is, my friends who had arranged the shoes didn't arrange them in pairs.
Okay.
So they just kept them all over the place inside. And when it was my turn to take out the pairs and keep them, I picked out 3 or 4 and realized that they were only singles, and I didn't have time during the play and get the other shoes, so I didn't keep anything out. So later the teacher told me, "What's wrong with you? We had kept so many shoes. You were supposed to look like a rich shoemaker." So that's a story that always comes
Something
to mind.
to
Yeah,
remember.
something to remember by. But this is a story which, all of us,
Yes.
it's a children's story, but there's so much that we can learn.
Yes.
A little kindness. It doesn't have to be before Christmas.
Absolutely.
It can be at any time.
I
Can
think
be-
both the stories, that's what it spoke about,
Yes,
right?
Yeah, Lord,
One
a
small
little
act
bit
of
of act
kindness.
and can do so much for someone,
Yes.
So those are our stories for you today.
Yes, let everyone be happy and together with all your near and dear ones.
Have a
Be-
lovely Christmas.
Be happy this Christmas. Wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas from Sugar and
Spice. We'll be back with more. Until then, do give us your feedback, your suggestions. We'd love to have them.
yes, and we'll
Bye.
see you all next year.
Bye-bye.
2023. Yes. Bye bye.
Love you. Happy New Year. as well.
Happy New Year. Bye bye.